Okay, so first things first, WayV's gonna have a comeback in China, it seems. And they've also alluded that it's not only just gonna be a full album, there will also be unit activities.
Okay, so, well, my first question is, does this mean that there is no promotion outside of the kind of Chinese media streams, or is it just simply locally based, but we still might have some exposure to it potentially in Korea or elsewhere?
That's a great question. I feel like it's literally what SM has been struggling with, to be completely honest, because they're dropping content not only on their own platforms, but also like on a lot of other kind of YouTube platforms, some of which, or like mostly, these platforms are mainly Korean. So I feel like they'll definitely have some Korean exposure of some kind, but I'm imagining like the live stages and all of that, I feel like it'll mostly be in China. Why? Does that change things for you?
No, it just kind of changes the significance with which I anticipate this comeback because, okay, as the viewers will come to know, WayV is my favorite band ever, and one of the reasons for that is like their particular geopolitical position. It just seems to me like there's this perpetual game of like,
Mm.
will WayV be successful in China? Question mark.
For real.
So that's very exciting. Yeah. And honestly, and in kind of preparing for this and figuring out why I love the group so much, I came across a really amazing interview that was actually done by Teen Vogue USA and written
Mm-hmm.
by Elizabeth DeLuna. And one of the things they actually mentioned was their group dynamic. And this was one of the things that I loved about them so much upon first glance. Lucas notably said, you know, like we all came from different places
Mm-hmm.
to train in a foreign country and work together. So we believed in and helped each other through that process. Like we didn't do anything particular. And Ten said,
Mm.
yeah, like there was this early kind of recognition that we need to protect and like help each other out. I think that really comes through with basically how they conduct themselves, but how they conduct themselves also had to do with basically what their purpose is in Lee Suman's master game. But we'll get into that later.
It always comes back to that.
It always comes back to that. So extremely excited for the WayV comeback in China.
Mm-hmm.
Just like best of luck always. I'm in anticipation.
You know, I'm just waiting for WayV to go off. Considering that they've only been around for 3 years, it's really impressive the kind of discography and activities that they've had. The only thing that's disappointing is that they're kind of in between two cultural spaces, and SM seems to still be trying to figure out like how to promote them successfully in either of the spaces, also keeping in mind like the rest of NCT. So I just hope the fact that they're getting promotions in China just means that they'll get more exposure, that they'll get more opportunities, like whether it be for the group, the units, or as individuals, just because like even seeing Lucas and Winwin in China right now, they are getting so many great opportunities there. So I just hope that translates to the entire group. And it is also interesting because recently with Kun and Xiaojun's comeback, I'd say a bit of backlash from Koreans just because they were shocked by the fact that they were singing a Chinese song on a Korean broadcasting show, basically.
Yes.
And obviously, like WayV's done this before, right? But it just came to light all of a sudden. People were reacting to it a bit more. So I don't know. Maybe I think in a lot of times it's time for WayV to actively promote in China and just like openly embrace what their inevitably slightly controversial place in K-pop is. So we'll see. I think artistically, I just really want a good song.
Same. And I find they don't let us down with that. Like in every album, there is at least like one really transcendent, amazing piece. I don't know. I think so.
Okay, but would you have chosen Action Figure or Kickback as the title if it was up to you?
I think Action Figure is a stronger song. I like it more. But this whole title track selection game is, you know, a topic in and of itself.
It's so true.
I think there's a whole game around that I honestly can't speak to right now.
Honestly, same. Like, I feel like in Lee Suman we trust, question mark.
Or at least in Lee Suman we watch.
Exactly. I think the one thing I will say, though, is that I would love to see some new kind of ad-lib structures or, like, vocal lines, I think. Just because Kickback, to me, like, didn't feel super fresh in that sense.
Yes, I totally agree. And I also think, like, if any of the groups can do it, it's WayV.
I agree.
Sonically, they've always mediated this space, and this is something the members also kind of frequently talk to. They're not really quite C-pop, they're not quite K-pop. their individual
Mm.
composition was already kind of defined by this sense of Chinese diaspora between like several members coming from foreign states but still having kind of Chinese heritage. It's a
Mhm.
very international band and it's a very international sound, which is one of the reasons I'm so interested in it, because I think it really speaks to my experience as a K-pop listener, being like a Canadian, not speaking Korean or having,
Oh, that's so
you know,
interesting.
much
Yeah.
personal exposure to that music culture. This is kind of like a band that's really entering and owning that zone. And
Mhm.
in a challenge, it's that they don't really belong evenly into either category and they're kind of stuck
Mhm.
geopolitically between the two. But in an advantage, it's like it really does speak to that more international contemporary moment that we're living in terms of this cross-cultural music exchange. WayV is just in a really exciting spot right now, and they're just such an exciting group to follow and to stand. So I'm very excited.
They're so talented.
So
They're so
talented.
talented. I'm so excited by the fact that they've already had some unit activities, the fact that 2 of their members are in Super M, the fact that they've been interacting with fans in a way that's a bit different from the other NCT units, I think is really promising. So I'm just waiting for WayV to go off. Like, honestly, I have no concerns when it comes to the members.
When it comes to the individual group and the members, no concern. When it comes to like how it's gonna
Exactly.
land,
Yeah.
different story, but it keeps it exciting. It keeps it exciting for sure.
You know what? I think that could be a good transition to talk about 127.
Please take us away.
Because, well, let's talk about 127. So they are going to get a new full album and apparently a repackaged album too in September.
Okay.
And just to give some context, it's been 5 years since they debuted.
Oh my word.
And so 5 years ago, 127 dropped Fire Truck. They've obviously come a long way since those iconic hairstyles. But yeah, so I feel like 127, they had such a good year last year. I mean, all of NCT did, but I think 127 really kicked it off with Kick It because that was such a success. And also the album itself, New Zone, was so good. And what really impressed me about that was just the line distributions. Generally speaking, I think the last album was very balanced and was probably their most balanced album yet. I would just love to see that transferred to a title track level.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. It's the goal, and I feel like now is the time to do it because, you know, it's 5 years have passed. Taeya's gonna go to the military, like, high-key soon. But that is to say, I think it is a really big turning point for NCT just because of the amount of success they've garnered in 2020. And 127, like, in a lot of ways, they're their biggest group internationally speaking. So I'm excited for this album. I just want it to be balanced and good and, like, good for the members and every single one of them.
Okay, yes. So what do you think of the debut in the context of the calendar position of this year?
I'm just at a loss, honestly.
Okay.
Like, when I just saw the list of activities that SM had in store, at first I was like, oh, okay, you know, that's pretty exciting. And then I looked at the calendar. Like, when is SM gonna get this done? Like, WayV is gonna be doing their own thing in China. I get it. NCT is gonna be in Korea. But with Hollywood 2021, like a new U unit, is there gonna be a new, like, permanent unit? I have no idea. I've been thinking about the pandemic, and I feel like it's not a coincidence that NCT did really well during a time when people just had more of an appetite for digital content. And I mean, a lot of fans have deduced that NCT 2020 wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the
100%.
pandemic, because like 127 was going to go abroad, do their worldwide tour and everything. So I'm just thinking, like, SM's shoving so much at us. The only way I've been able to survive is literally by compartmentalizing things. I've just been like, okay, NCT Hollywood in that drawer, like the Dreamies in this one, you know, let's keep things organized. But if all these things are going to be rolling out, like, can fans keep up? Can fans keep up not only mentally, but just with their money?
And emotionally? The emotional you know, it's a great question. And it's something to track through this year, because I don't think there has been as heavy of a schedule for the NCT universe and the NCT than in the next, like, 6 months.
Literally. And I mean, I think this is also why the 127 album is so important, because the moment that SM slips with its production quality, fans will go to war with them, I think.
Yeah.
Like, if 127 gets dropped to the back burner, that's it. And, like, they really can't afford to do that, so I'm sure they won't do it. But that's why I think the WayV Comeback and the 127 Comeback, they both need to be really solid.
I mean, that is a really interesting point because we've often contemplated the viability of this kind of quantity over quality or limitless expansion
Yeah.
model that is NCT. And one of the inherent dangers with it is that it competes against itself, right? There's only so much share of the music industry that any kind of one creative endeavor can, assume and control. And I think in light of, let's say, a comparable media phenomenon like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like it has been proven to work very well in some structures. But I think there's always this kind of question of, is it long-term sustainable? Can Lee Soo-man really go the distance? And each of these little steps are kind of necessary building blocks that are going to build this bridge. But at any one point, it could seriously falter and cave in. And like, what is he going to do then? Are we just going to do a classic SM like amnesia moment and just forget it happened, like early EXO, or like even thinking into this the Kwangya.
Oh gosh,
the virtual reality cultural universe moment. Like, are we just gonna wipe it from the register?
I wouldn't put it past them.
I think it's a solid escape strategy.
Okay, NCT 2021, where to even begin? I mean, I think timeline-wise, it's probably going to happen at the end of the year, like in resonance style.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is it going to be like how EXO had a Christmas album? NCT's going to have like a like a major group album?
I personally view this as a bid for Lee Soo-man to convince us of his decisions to form Hollywood and this potential, like maybe other full unit, aside from this like NCTU unit. But that's nothing new in the NCT, like NCTUs come and go, and that's perfectly fine. But it was kind of similar to how before there's a really big group release, he kind of plants some of those key members in earlier editions before their fixed groups have debuted, like Jungwoo and Lucas and Kun in Boss. Was Kun in Boss?
Kun was not in Boss.
Okay,
guess who was in Boss? Win-win.
Win-win. Yeah, there you go. So I suspect that it's going to be trying to just tie up maybe some questionable decisions and like do the usual thing of convincing end citizens that like, yeah, everything's okay, like it's fine, like we're gonna keep going, nothing to see here. Here
it is. What are the pros and cons of bringing together all these different NCT units? Like, as a fan, what do you enjoy seeing, and what are you like not as big of a fan of seeing?
Positives, the crossover. I think it's so great to see them, interacting with other members that they don't normally interact with, potentially make more friendships, generally unify the very chaotic, ever-expanding thing that is NCT. I think that being in a larger group lends itself to a very unique stage performance. Just thinking back to Resonance, when they first dropped the teaser images, and there are just 23 of Korea and like China and Japan's most beautiful men, all in costume with such dramatic lighting, like that's a moment. So amazing. Cons, I think it was truly exhausting and grabbed for more than it could handle, and all that was left was just the tears and despair and exhaustion, which kind of hurts us more than it heals us, for sure. Those are the big strokes as far as I see.
I think, first of all, shout out to kudos to SM for embracing the fact that these members, some of them rarely interact with each other and are thus very awkward with one another. But the fact that they've capitalized on it, wow. Like, not only does that just...
Only, like, SM can.
Only SM can do that, because not only does that make it a comfortable subject area for fans to discuss, they're also making money off of it. So... just kudos to them. There are really exciting new units that can emerge. So I feel like that's really good for the members too, because they can also grow musically. Like, I feel like I've seen Renjun, for instance, grow so much in the past year, like Chunla as well. That's really good. I think, you know what? The only thing I want is just for the members to be happy.
We need to put it on a banner at the top of the channel to make our mission and vision statement very clear. The only thing we want is for these people to be okay in their craft.
If they can emerge after these rounds of promotions happy and healthy, 100%. Then I'll be content.
100%.
Okay. Is it time to talk about
the thing we've been avoiding the whole conversation? Sure, why not?
NCT Hollywood.